Welcome to Tennessee, my friends. We are off to see some Carl Perkins sights today. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. Wake up there, sleepyhead. We're about to the hometown of Carl Perkins, man. King of the rockabilly. Well, we've made our way out to the Carl Perkins Visitor Center here in Tiptonville. This was Carl Perkins' childhood hometown. Carl Perkins grew up very poor. He had 3 brothers, and he said that his family actually worked on a cotton plantation, and other than his family and the owners of the plantation, they were the only white people on the plantation. So he said he would grow up listening to all the black people that he picked cotton with singing songs, and he fell in love with it. He loved Red Foley and Ernest Tubb and music like that, but he loved what they were doing. And so there was a man named Westbrook who took Carl kind of under his wing, and he could play guitar, and he taught Carl what a guitar was, and basically eventually helped create a cigar box guitar with a broomstick handle as his first guitar. And then he actually bought Carl his first guitar, and Carl really never stopped. He ended up playing in his 4th grade marching band. He loved the response that he got from the people in the crowd, and he said it kind of made him realize that he didn't have to be a farmer and pick cotton the rest of his life, and that the world was a big place. And so he and his brothers all became musicians. His older brother Jay and his brother Clayton became the upright bass player, and at 14 years old, Carl convinced them to go out, and they tried to play gospel music, but they just couldn't make any money. So their mom begged them not to play the honky tonks, but Carl said, "Mom, that's the only way we can make any money." And basically Carl Perkins never quit playing. He was performing concerts, almost 200 dates a year, till he died. The Visitor Center is on the Tennessee Music Trail, which also goes into Memphis. We've seen a lot of stuff on this trail throughout our years traveling, but they've actually moved his Boyhood home over to the premises here, and they have a lot of information, so let me read it for you. It says, although Carl Perkins' only significant hit as a performer was Blue Suede Shoes, his early records are among the cornerstones of rock and roll. Later, he was hailed as the king of rockabilly for his innovative fusion of country, blues, bluegrass, and gospel music. The Beatles played 3 of Carl's songs, Matchbox, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, and Honey Don't, on their albums. For the BBC, they performed 2 more songs he recorded at Sun Studio, Sure to Fall and Glad All Over. His guitar style influenced Eric Clapton, George Harrison, and countless others. As a songwriter, he wrote or co-wrote Daddy Sang Bass, a #1 country hit for Johnny Cash, Let Me Tell You About Love, #1 country hit for the Judds, So Wrong, a top 20 country hit for Patsy Cline, Silver and Gold, a top 20 country hit for Dolly Parton, and When You're a Man on Your Own, a song on George Strait's #1 country album, Livin' It Up. The son of a sharecropper, Carl E. Perkins was born on April 9th, 1932 near Tiptonville. Listening to local blues and country singers, Perkins claimed to have formulated the rockabilly style before Elvis, an assertion supported by early home recordings. In 1947, the Perkins family moved to Jackson, Tennessee. Carl and his 2 brothers began performing in local clubs. After hearing Presley, he discovered he was on Sun Records in Memphis. Perkins went to Sun and was signed in October of 1954. Wow, what a historic time. His 3rd single, Blue Suede Shoes, released in January of 1956, became one of the first million sellers of the rock and roll era. It was also one of the first all-market hits, pop country and rhythm and blues. Perkins was scheduled to perform on NBC's Perry Como show on March 24th of 1956, but he was involved in a horrible auto accident en route to New York. Later, he believed the accident and convalescence set back his career. On December 4th, 1956, Perkins was recording Matchbox at Sun with Jerry Lee Lewis on piano when Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash stopped by. Their jam session came to be known as the $1 Million Quartet Session. Look, there he is with his buddy Johnny right there. Actually, I don't know if they mentioned it, but he kind of stepped away from music as far as being a solo performer, became part of Johnny's band at one point. It says, disappointed by the failure of Matchbox and his later Sun recordings, Perkins became increasingly despondent. In January of 1967, Cash hired him as a supporting act, and Perkins stayed until August of 1975. He headlined a 1985 television special, Blue Suede Shoes, a rockabilly session with Eric Clapton, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Roseanne Cash, and many others. Perkins was inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1985 and into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987. Carl Perkins worked with the Exchange Club in Jackson to launch the state's first Center for Prevention of Child Abuse. Carl Perkins died on January 19th, 1998. Mourners at his funeral included Garth Brooks, George Harrison, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, and hundreds of others, attesting to the respect in which he was held. Yep, he wrote Blue Suede Shoes. What he said happened was he heard Elvis, and he had already been playing that music, and when his wife heard it on the radio as well, she came in and she said, Carl, that's God talking to you. It's to you and your brothers, because Carl's band was his two brothers. He played guitar, his older brother Jay also played guitar, and then his brother Clayton was on bass. Even though they were a family band, they went by Carl Perkins. And so they went to Sun Recording Studios, or, the Memphis recording where Sam Phillips was, and they wanted to talk to him about getting a deal. And he actually was out in the parking lot. And so they played him one of the songs that Jay sang, and he didn't seem impressed. So Carl started doing one of his songs, and Sam said, hey, can you stand still? And Carl said, yeah, I can. He goes, well, if I record you, you're going to have to stand still, because we can't record you moving around like that. And so they recorded their first song, and Sam loved the country aspect to the sound. Even though Carl was more rockabilly and rock and roll, Sam kind of saw it as, well, I already have Elvis. Why do I want you to be that guy? But when he sold Elvis's contract, he went to Carl Perkins and said, okay, Carl, you're my guy. And Blue Suede Shoes, after Carl had that horrible accident where their driver rear-ended another truck, he actually killed the truck driver, and Carl was in a cast from his waist to his neck, as well as his brother was. And when he came back and was all healed up, ironically, Sam Phillips gave him a Cadillac as a gift for being the first million seller on Sun Records. So you'll notice over here on the grounds that they have his boyhood home and the CP Express, the Carl Perkins Express. That is very cool. I love that when they do stuff like this, like out where Hank Williams grew up, they have a train out there with his name on it. CP Express. He said Blue Suede Shoes was, when it became a hit, it was a regional hit, and then it started becoming a national hit. He and Elvis were trading spots for the #1 spot on the record charts. Elvis had Heartbreak Hotel, and Carl had Blue Suede Shoes. They were just going back and forth, and then Carl had the accident, and he said while he was in that cast, Elvis recorded Blue Suede Shoes. And Carl was kind of mad about it, even though he was not like a guy to hold grudges or anything. He just said that he thought, he was going to have the stardom with that. And he didn't find out till later, much later, that Elvis didn't want to even record it. He told them at the time, that's Carl's song, I don't want to do it. But once it hit #1, he agreed to record it. So Carl wrote a ton of songs, like 500 songs, but that was the only one that he ever wrote that was a #1 hit. He did eventually get to do that Perry Como performance, but he was never upset about it. I mean, he was upset at the time, but he said, looking back, he had a wonderful life and that he felt like he was never meant to be the super popular guy. He was never good looking or anything like that. So he just said, you know, I've had a blessed career. I have wonderful wife and kids that are proud to call Carl Perkins their father, and that's good enough for me. Came back over and I was looking at the Carl Perkins Express again, and I noticed on the other side, look at this. It's kind of cool. We'll go up and take the little stairwell up so I can show you what I'm talking about. But Blue Suede Shoes. So the idea for Blue Suede Shoes when he wrote it came from actually 3 different things. It was someone accidentally stepping on his blue suede shoes while he was out performing in the honky tonks one night. Johnny Cash was with him, and Johnny saw it and said, hey, you should write a song about that. He didn't do it, but then all of a sudden he was watching while they were playing one night, and he saw some people getting into an argument, like a couple getting into an argument on the dance floor, and he just kind of imagined they were getting mad about the guy telling her not to step on his blue suede shoes. So that's where the song came from. Let's go on in the visitor center and see what they have inside. I thought that the Boyhood home was open for tours, but maybe not. Well, inside the visitor center you can see there's a Carl Perkins Parkway, and they have some signed photos by Carl, or from Carl. There's the famous $1 Million Quartet. Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Carl Perkins. Well, we're going to head out of here. I'm kind of bummed because I mainly came here today to take the tour of the childhood home, but from what she said, they have to do a bunch of work on it. I mean, I can tell that the front steps and everything are in bad shape, but she said they have to do some work on it. So it hasn't been open for tours for a while, and not quite sure when it will be, but I'm going to show you in through the windows because there is some stuff inside we can see right in that window. It's not the best because it's a really filthy window, but you can see a little bit inside, a little bit of the furniture and things like that. Bummer. Guess if they ever reopen it, we'll come back. Hey, Ja, I don't think the museum she was telling me in town has much Carl Perkins stuff, so we're going to head to Jackson, see where he's buried. Let's roll! We've made it over to the final home of Carl Perkins. I love it. If you look up by the front doors, they have it bookended with guitars. There's a golden guitar out here in front of the bushes. This was his longtime home, and there's a big pool back there, and I wanted to show this because we just saw his childhood home when they were working out on the plantation, and to see what he ended up with is just so cool to see what his talent, his inventiveness, his great songwriting, and his hard work of touring 100 days to 200 days a year, what it all paid off, and he had a nice comfortable life here at the end. Now he's buried here in town as well, so I want to go and see his final resting place. All the way back on the very back wall crypt is Carl Perkins and the love of his life, Valda Perkins. He once said, you know, he felt like he could do anything because of her. When he first played his music for her, he said she just raved about him, how good he was, and just, as he said, carried on. And he never thought he was very good looking, but she loved him, and she supported him doing his music. And even when they were struggling to get by and having a family, she still wanted him to do his music, and thank God. Thank you, Valda, the ever supportive, beautiful wife. Carl was raised in that little shack we saw, then had that beautiful home that he was living in when he died in. Unfortunately passed away at the hospital from a series of minor strokes. January 19th, 1998. His brothers were his band when he started out and when they went to Sun Records. But after that car accident, his brother Jay was really in a lot of pain. And Jay actually would wear a neck brace so he could stand up and play guitar. And the only reason that he would stay in the band, it wasn't because, you know, he had the ego and couldn't let go. He wanted every show for Carl to sound just like his record. So he stayed until he got brain cancer in 1958 and died, which was the same year that Carl felt that Sam Phillips wasn't promoting him well enough, wasn't picking the best songs that he wanted to do, and he just felt like maybe there were greener pastures in Nashville. So 1958, he signed a deal with Columbia Records, and he said it was the worst thing probably he ever did. He said if he could change, you know, one thing about his career in his life, he would have never left Sun. He said he felt like if he ever had a big hit in him or anything like that, it would have been made at Sun Records. But he said when he went to Columbia that they just, you know, they had a bunch of country people. They didn't know how to make rockabilly or rock and roll music, and a lot of times they wouldn't even let him play the guitar on it. He would just sing on it, and they'd have studio musicians that just weren't doing quite the way he wanted, and he started drinking. And he had, you know, eventually his brother was drinking too that was in his band, and he got out of control one night, and Carl had to basically throw him in the back of the car and say, "We're going back to Jackson." And he brought him back to their parents' house and said, "That's it, you're not going on the road with me anymore." Now, Carl had a little bit of a surge also, because at one point Chuck Berry said, "Hey, come do a tour with me in England." And when he went over there, that's when he met the Beatles, and the Beatles were obsessed with Carl. So he befriended, well, the Beatles befriended him, basically. They were all good friends for the rest of Carl's life. And they would, of course, do his songs and always be big supporters of Carl's. So he had a great career, 500 plus songs, lots of hits that other people did, and in the end, he's known as the godfather of rockabilly music. Rest in peace, Carl. Where rock and roll was born, you were one of the original Sun legends. Well, my friends, thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time from Jackson, Tennessee. Have a great night, and goodbye.